Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Gartenberg, and I'm here with the Center for Best Practices at Share Our Strength. Thank you for joining us today for the Summer Meals at Public Housing Facilities webinar. We have just a few housekeeping items before we get started. All attendees are in listen-only mode, and we will be recording this webinar today. We will take questions during the webinar. Please use the question box for your questions, and we will read them out loud or respond to them individually. We will circulate the webinar recording and resources later this week. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce my colleague, Derek Lambert, to start the webinar.
Thanks so much, Emily, and thanks to everybody for joining us for today's webinar, Summer Meals at Public Housing Facilities. As you can see on the next slide, this is part of our Schools Out, Foods In webinar series calendar. We have today's webinar, May 22nd, Summer Meals at Public Housing Facilities, and our final webinar, June 12th, will be about serving summer meals at non-traditional sites. I'll have a little bit more information about that at the end of the webinar. Thanks to our generous supporter, the Arby's Foundation, for making this series possible. No Kid Hungry, for those of you who are new to this webinar, is a national campaign working to end childhood hunger by connecting kids to the healthy food they need every day, with a special focus on summer meals, school breakfast, and after-school meals. The No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices provides tools and resources needed to help elected officials and their staff, educators, and community leaders achieve success fighting childhood hunger. We provide tools and resources, case studies, reports, webinars, and trainings. We also share expertise and provide technical assistance to organizations or agencies working to end hunger in their state or community. And we also have a new website at bestpractices.nokidhungry.org. This includes all of the resources that we just mentioned, and we hope that you'll be sure to visit our website and leave feedback as you browse elsewhere so that we can know how to improve the site moving forward. On our next slide, I'd like to just go quickly over the webinar agenda. Today we're going to talk about why summer nutrition programs are so important in combating food insecurity, review some program basics, and how you can engage with USDA rural development to expand access to summer meals at public housing facilities. In the last 15 minutes of today's webinar, we're fortunate to have staff from Share Our Strength's communications team on hand to provide a quick overview of how program sponsors and community partners can get the word out about summer meals to children and families as summer gets started in the weeks ahead. So, without further ado, let's dive right into the need for summer meals. We know that these programs have a great impact on health, learning, and family, and that they are indispensable as a resource for families when school is out. Without access to nutritious summer meals, children from low-income families are more likely to suffer from food insecurity, and they may gain weight as they resort to less healthy but easily accessible food options. Improving nutrition and food security can help children maintain a healthy body mass index during the summer. When a child gains weight, he or she is more susceptible to chronic diseases such as iron deficiency, anemia, asthma, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease, any of which can result in frequent hospitalization. Food insecurity also affects a child's mental well-being and can lead to conditions like depression, anxiety, or other outcomes. Ensuring access to proper nutrition through federal nutrition programs can help mitigate or prevent these conditions. Summer meals also has an impact on learning. We know that proper nutrition supports continued brain development and cognitive functioning that's necessary to maintain academic achievements made during the school year. Summer nutrition programs provide healthy foods that contain essential nutrients such as protein, iron, and zinc. Nutrient meals can protect against cognitive decline, which can help mitigate summer learning loss. Consumption of nutritious food not only supports better cognitive functioning in the summer, it also helps children from families learn and perform well once they return to the classroom. What's more, a lot of these programs are co-located with opportunities for learning, physical activity, and socialization that help keep children healthy and prepare for school readiness in the fall. And finally, the impact on families themselves. The struggle to replace school meals can create real economic hardship for struggling families. Often thought to be a time to enjoy a break from school, summer can mean a break from food, as some of the other child nutrition programs like school breakfast and lunch are not as easily accessible while children are not attending school. Trying to replace these meals can create economic hardship for families. During the summer, we know that many low-income families find it harder to make ends meet, and there are trade-offs that they have to make that can have a negative impact on all family members, including children. And so that's why today we want to talk about opportunities to partner with USDA Rural Development as part of the solution. While program outreach or expansion to public housing sites might seem like a clear opportunity to increase access to summer meals, especially for folks who have been listening to this webinar all through 2018, we know it isn't always easy to identify who the gatekeepers are who can help bring this idea to life. This is why for program sponsors, USDA rural development staff are key players in efforts to expand service in this area. In 3 ways. First, USDA rural development staff are key stakeholders. Their expertise, knowledge, and established relationships with property owners and managers is really key. Rural development staff can play a unique role linking established summer meals program sponsors who are operating programs to property owners and management who are well positioned to help bring their housing site online as meal sites. Number 2, these staff at rural development, these staff members can speak the language of other state agencies that may administer these programs. And in some cases, rural development staff has really engaged as peers to help gather information about where summer meal program sponsors may already be active in order to make connections with property owners and managers that have a demonstrated interest in the program. And by connecting the dots, point number 3, around summer meals, RD staff have a unique opportunity to facilitate community connections that lead to expanded access to summer nutrition. So quickly, Emily, we want to ask a couple of questions to our audience to really understand who's in the room and what their exposure to this kind of model, the summer meals at public housing facilities, looks like already. So let's go ahead and launch the first poll, Emily, which is, which type of organization do you folks on the line, do you most closely represent? Are you associated with public housing, a summer meals program sponsor, some other community-based organization, a school or a school district, or some other entity? And that could be any wide range. I mean, we got a lot of folks listening today. So I'll give you those 5 choices again. Which organization do you most closely represent? Public housing, summer meals program sponsor, community-based organization, school or school district, or other. Emily, let's give folks about 5 more seconds, close the poll, and see what the results are.
All right, Derek, it looks like we have a lot of other as well as school/school district, with 24% of attendees reporting being from a school/school district. 20% are from a community-based organization, 18% are summer meals program sponsors, and 14% are with public housing.
Great. So we got a wide cross-section of folks in the room today. That's good to know. And so we want to follow up quickly with the second question. For all of you on the line, regardless of which category you fell into, the second poll question, has your organization helped to implement summer meals at public housing facilities in the past? This means maybe you are directly providing meals, maybe you work at a public facility, housing facility, and you've helped make that happen, or maybe you're a third party, a community-based organization that's provided some support. So in any of those capacities, have you been involved in bringing summer meals to public housing facilities in the past? And it's a quick question, just yes or no. So Emily, let's give folks about 5 or 7 more seconds, and then we'll close the poll and see what we find.
It looks like we're at around 59% of attendees who have helped distribute summer meals and 41% who have not had experience with that.
Okay, so we actually have a lot of folks in the room who are familiar with this model and may have even helped to implement it. So it sounds like we'll be raising awareness in some cases and maybe helping provide some good ideas for folks that want to continue to further implement and expand this. That's great. Thanks so much, Emily. And without further ado, let's dive right in and welcome our panelists. We have a distinguished panel today. We have Tracy Mao, who's a program analyst with the USDA Food and Nutrition Service, Debbie Boyd, multifamily housing specialist with USDA Rural Development, Edgar Ortega, who's also an area specialist at USDA Rural Development, and we have our own Johanna Elsmore, an associate with Media and Public Affairs with No Kid Hungry. Want to give a special thanks to folks at USDA, both at FNS and at Rural Development, for making themselves available for today's webinar. And at this time, I'd like to hand the mic over to Tracy Mao, USDA Food and Nutrition Service Program Analyst, to give us an overview about the Summer Meals Program. Tracy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Derek, thanks so much for having me here. And I'm happy to be on the line and to speak to all of you. And it's great to speak to so many people who are experienced with summer or interested in working with summer meals, especially in public housing. If you could go to the next slide, we'll dive right in. I know we got a full and great panel today. So this is there's a bunch of folks, it sounds like, who've already worked on summer. And so for those of you who are new, I wanted to tell you about the Food and Nutrition Service. We're part of the USDA, and we have our summer meals programs that are run out of that out of the Food and Nutrition Service. But when we say run, it's really being done on the ground by the folks like yourselves. But I wanted to describe what the different types of meals and programs are out there. Obviously, it's a federal program, so we have to have acronyms. So the first one is the Summer Food Service Program. That's probably what most people are familiar with. And this just is the traditional summer program. It can feed kids when school is out. We also have the National School Lunch Program. Almost all of us had school lunch at some point in our lives. And that's usually to serve kids enrolled in summer school. And then there's a third option, which is a hybrid between the two. And it's an option for those of you at schools, which is School Food Authority. That's what SFA stands for. And this is to continue to serve meals under using kind of somewhat different meal patterns, closer to school lunch meal patterns, to continue to feed the community during the summer months. It just makes it a little bit easier for schools to roll over and feed kids in the summer and then go back to feeding kids under the school lunch program. If you could go to the next slide, please, I appreciate it. So this slide really describes how the program works. So our states are our partners. So that's all of the state agencies. You can find their list on our website. And those are kind of the first steps for the gatekeepers for sponsors. So all sponsors have to have an agreement with their state agency, and that includes DC. I don't know if anybody is calling from DC or Puerto Rico, but that would also include your state agencies. The state agency will train the sponsor. They will let them know what the sponsor's responsibilities are, and they're going to do everything they can to help the sponsor succeed, and helping them return year after year, which is really that key that we're looking for, is, you know, really getting those experienced sponsors, especially if people have been running, you know, other child nutrition programs like the school lunch program. And then the sponsors are doing everything from handling the administration and training of what's happening at the site. They do all the reporting to the state on how many meals were served. They arrange the meals at each site and make sure that it meets the USDA nutrition standards. They supervise and monitor the sites, ensure all the paperwork is done and submitted. And then obviously they work with the state to get that reimbursement. And the sponsors are really kind of the key champions of the program, and I'm going to go into that in 1 second. But first, the last but not least is the sites, and that's where the kids are actually getting these meals, where we're getting the two big components together, so the kids will actually get their meals there. A lot of times the sites are being run by volunteers, and for the purposes of this, it would be at a public housing someplace where the kids are already at, which is key. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So sponsors can be any organization that can handle the financial, administrative, and the food service responsibilities of running summer. It can be significant. There's a lot of different tools that we've made, and we have a lot of toolkits. And again, there's that training through the state agencies. So it's a hurdle, but it's not impossible. And there's also a lot of experienced sponsors in almost every community across the country that can be helpful in helping people come on as sponsors. Sponsors can, in rural areas, especially because we're going to be having some folks from rural development. In rural areas, there's some additional reimbursement that can be had just because Congress recognizes the additional costs that can be had when serving meals in rural communities. And then other sponsors might have vendors that actually serve the meals, they actually bring the meals to the site. So sometimes sponsors will have folks actually cook the meals from scratch. If you wanted to do farm to summer, if you have a garden at your public housing community or at your school and you wanted to incorporate those local foods. Also, there's vendors who can help meet the nutritional needs of kids during the summer. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Excuse me. So the sites are where the kids get the meals, and I mentioned that, but it can be, think broadly, it can be indoors, it can be outdoors. It's really anywhere kids are coming naturally. So, that could be, you see the little picture of the pool. Obviously, the housing community, if you think about parents, they're going to want to send their kids, downstairs rather than, off alone walking a couple blocks away. So having public housing is a great and ideal place that kids feel safe and they know where they are and they don't have to go very far and they're not going to get, super hot walking and they're going to know if it's open or not, and they're going to know their kids in that area. But there's a lot of other places where sites can be. So that can be, you know, parks and recreation, libraries, anywhere else like congregations. We've had mobile sites where, you know, if you're in a very rural area, having a van come by and then having somebody stay with the kids while they eat the meal, and then the van goes to the next spot. So there's a lot of different models that we have, and a lot of those that can be found in our toolkit on our website. And if you could go to the next page, next slide, thank you. So this is just describing the types of sites, and I don't want to get too far into this. Most of the sites that we have are open sites, so that just means any child can come and eat a meal for free, and that's really what we're looking for. As Derek mentioned, replacing summer meals is difficult, or school meals is difficult in the summer. So really we want to just be able to get those kids a meal, making sure that they're getting the nutrition they need so they're ready to learn. We also have a few other options for the type of site. I'm not going to go through them all here, but just I wanted to draw your attention to camps. Camps are a great way to serve kids if you're having kind of an enrolled program. The reimbursement in that case is only for the kids who are meeting the income guidelines, but you can serve 3 meals a day. And then for any folks who are serving the migrant communities, that's another option, and that just for those sites, they must serve primary children of migrant families. Okay, next slide, please. Eligibility is quite easy. It's not really, for the most part, it's not based on the individual child. It's about where the site is. So we use school data and also data from the census that as long as 50% or more of the children in that area are eligible for free and reduced price meals for school lunch, they can put a site there, and any child that shows up can get a free meal. So that's pretty easy. Also, you can use sometimes housing data. So if you are in a public housing area, you could consider talking to your state agency about using that data. And then obviously, if you're doing one of those other types of sites, you can do the income eligibility application like you would for school lunch. There's a lot of great tools out there. Share Strength has some. And then as well as your state agency and USDA for figuring out that school census data. But anybody at the state agency can be more than happy to help you. And if you could just go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this one I just wanted to draw your attention to. It's congregate feeding requirement. We hear about this at every conference. Just know that that is a requirement by law from the National School Lunch Act, and that all children need to be in a supervised setting, having a congregate meal. So if you think about backpack programs, that's not what this program is. It's more of they come, they eat, they're able to socialize. It's really trying to give them that National School Lunch feel during the summer, getting that reimbursable meal, getting them there, and hopefully with activities and getting them to come back. Okay, and I think that's the end of my slide. So now I'll be turning it over to Debbie. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Derek and Emily for inviting Rural Development Multifamily Housing here in California to participate in this webinar. I am super excited to share what we are doing here in California. So again, my name is Debbie Boyd, and I am a multifamily housing specialist, and I also serve as our multifamily housing program contact for the summer meal program in our state. So we'll go ahead and get started. The role of rural development multifamily housing in the program is to promote sites where meals can be served. This is a function that we fill very well. Since the housing and facility projects in which we finance are community anchors across rural America and can be the most perfect home base for providing vital services to children. The Summer Foods collaboration provides a great opportunity to build partnerships and leverage our collective resources to feed rural children during the summer. So as many of you know, and has been previously discussed in this webinar by Derek, the Summer Food Program provides low-income children with healthy meals at no cost during the summer when school is out. Statistics have shown that 1 out of 6 children who participate in the school meals receive summer meals if available. And that's the key word here, if available. Therefore, if it's not available, it can be assumed that there are no summer meal programs, and the bottom line is that these children will not be fed and will be hungry. This affects these low-income children in several ways. As discussed previously, it can have an impact on their health, learning, and family lives. Therefore, the summer food program is critically important for many rural children who may be at risk of going hungry when there is no access to the summer food program. So this is where we come in. Multifamily Housing Program continues to reach out to our borrowers and property managers for participation at their facilities where meals can be served. Whether as a site, a sponsor, or both, we continue to promote. Next slide, please. RD has worked closely with FNS to join as one USD in many aspects, but one of our most proud collaborations have been with the summer food program. We know that there are specific challenges to implementing the summer food program in rural areas, and some of the challenges can include, number one, those in need may not even know the program exists. 2, lack of sites to serve meals in rural America. 3, transportation, getting the kids to the sites or even the meals to the sites. And another one could be the lack of volunteers to keep the sites fun. Therefore, with some of these challenges, working together with FNS, we are able to take all the great materials from them and connect to our networks of rural stakeholders. With all of us working together, we can feed more children. Next slide, please. As we have discussed, summer can be the hungriest time of the year for the kids who rely on summer school meals. So many children, and it's approximately 22 million from low-income families, receive free or reduced price meals through federal programs during the school year. Less than 4 million participate in programs over the summer, escalating existing challenges with food insecurities. But free meal services at our multifamily housing properties are part of the answer. So this is why I get excited, because we at Multifamily Housing have the facilities to partner and expand the summer food program. In 2017, RD surpassed our previous year total by enrolling 384 multifamily housing properties, an all-time high. This was 79 more properties than we were able to serve the previous year. So this year, we are aiming for a 20% increase in the numbers of participating properties over our total from 2017. So in other words, our goal is to enroll a total of a minimum of 461 properties as mill size. Our multifamily housing portfolio of more than 14,000 properties provides the perfect location to help in closing this massive gap, to feed more children and ultimately help strengthen our communities. Next slide. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Edgar Ortega, to highlight some of the efforts he has made and some successes that he has had in Imperial County. Edgar.
Thank you very much, Debbie, for that. Hi, everybody. My name is Edgar Ortega. I am a multifamily housing specialist servicing the Imperial County here in California. I would also like to thank Derek and the No Kid Hungry organization for the invite for these webinars. Rhode Island has 10 apartment complexes here in the Imperial County where children are able to eat free and nutritious lunches throughout the summer. Last year, these sites helped out deliver more than 9,000 meals to children throughout the summer. I've been working with my properties on this program since I first learned about it in 2015. Over the past few years, I've learned about this program and I've become very, very passionate about helping become successful. Once I discovered who my local sponsor was, I contacted them to introduce myself and explain about our portfolio and properties we have here with USDA. I really have to give a lot of credit to the Calexico Neighborhood House because they're the program sponsors here. They've been so phenomenal to work with. I mean, I told them about my goals to expand into our many projects that we have here, and they actually welcomed the opportunity. With the sponsor support, then I contact all my properties and engage with my local inside management, and I linked actually both of them, showed them my role as a matchmaker in a sense. I knew we had a really great sponsor to provide the meals, so now I went to work to find even more properties interested in finding and becoming a site. I work hard to maintain a strong relationship with the properties, and I really encourage all of them to participate. Not force them, I just encourage them. I explain how important this program is to our agency and how this is a pretty easy way for them to help support the families, and in particular the kids, living in the properties in the community. All of our properties have community rooms, kitchens, and the kids are right there anyways. Next slide. Two of the complexes that I'm really proud of is Villa Dorada and Villa del Sol. These are great participants in the program. The on-site managers are excited to see the kids have the opportunity, and they're just excited to have these kids have the opportunity to have lunch every day. These properties are specifically for farm workers and their families. As sad as it is, many of the parents are working in the fields, gathering food that helps feed the nation. Yet their own kids are going hungry throughout the day. Just a quick example, one little girl told the manager that she had never used to eat during the day because her mom was working all day. Some of the schedules they're actually here, for the farm labor workers. You're talking about 7 a.m. and exiting at probably 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. So she wouldn't eat until 7 or so at night. But now that this program is served at her apartment complex, she knows that every day at noon she'll be able to get a meal. So I've been proud to being able to help and assist in those efforts. And that's about it. Thank you very much. So I would like to send this over to Debbie again from Rural Development.
Thank you, Edgar. So this is what Edgar was sharing with us is just another great example of the efforts of our team at RD in helping to expand the summer food program to rural children. All across the nation, our staff continues to reach out by writing letters, making calls, and connecting with our property managers and borrowers to increase the use of the program. So remember that RD has more than 14,000 multifamily housing properties across the nation that continues to be anchors for the summer meal program in rural America. We have really increased our efforts to promote and grow this program this year beyond our 14,000 multifamily housing properties, and we are now also actively engaging with our community facility projects as well. So at Rural Development, we finance a wide variety of essential community facilities across rural America. These projects can include things like community centers, senior centers, libraries, schools, commercial kitchens, boys and girls clubs, and so on. We've engaged with all these partners as well to encourage them to participate in the program as a sponsor or a feeding site. In some instances, we can work with a few groups. For example, maybe a multifamily housing complex that doesn't have a community room, but we have a nearby community center or library that we also finance that could partner together for the summer food program. So there is room for creativity. Next slide, please. So in closing, I challenge all of you to ask yourself, are you ready to make a difference in the lives of children in your community? The benefits are endless. Children have nutritious meals that they might not otherwise receive. Parents stretch their food dollars and know that their children are receiving healthy meals in a supportive environment. Food service workers have summer employment. Organizations receive funds to provide meals to complement already school programs such as day camps, sports activities, and tutoring sessions. And communities provide safe places for children to go to be with other children and with supportive adults. The need for good nutrition is crucial for children to have safe and productive summers. Make summer a nutritious and healthy experience for children of your community. Remember, our children are our future. They deserve our best. Actually, they deserve our very best. Give the children in your community your best for the Summer Food Service Program. I encourage everyone again to connect with FNS and your local USDA RD state contacts to see rural development projects and to find out what might be a good fit for you. We look forward to helping feed every child that is hungry this year and then the previous years. So thank you to all of you for listening, and we look forward to partnering with you and your agency or your organization. So thank you. Derek, I'm going to put it back to you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And this is really some great information from Tracy and Edgar and from yourself. Again, I just want to thank all of you for being a part of this and those great stories from USDA Rural Development California, which really illustrates the linkages between program sponsors, rural development liaisons, and property owners and managers to really be able to enable this program expansion into areas where there's support for the program and where those relationships can really help the conversation move forward. So, you know, some of the key takeaways I took from your Edgar and Debbie, from what you said, is the importance of engaging the state rural development summer meals liaison. And something we're really excited to share during today's webinar is that following this event, today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow, we're going to send out follow-up materials, and attendees will actually receive a contact list with the name and contact information for rural development summer meals liaisons in each state. If you seek to expand access to summer meals at a rural development facility, these folks are going to be your primary points of contact, and as Edgar mentioned, you can help facilitate those conversations with property owners and managers. When you reach out to your rural development summer meals liaison, you want to provide some key information about the services that your program provides, such as the service area you're looking to serve, any dates and the meals that you offer, and the details about your capacity to expand summer meals at these facilities. You know, as you explore these and have this conversation with your state liaisons, you can explore what overlap there might be between identified property owners and managers who may have already expressed an interest in the program or who may be interested in any potential outreach that could occur. As you connect with those property owners and managers, you're going to want to take steps to implement the summer program. And in that way, rural development staff can be very helpful in connecting sponsors to those owners and managers who have an interest in the program. This is really important in the context of a warm handoff from the rural development liaison who may have an established relationship of trust and can help move that conversation forward more quickly. Sponsors will then work directly with the property owners and managers and local site staff to plan and implement the program, with rural development staff remaining available as a resource for any questions that may arise. And then, point number 4, implementation. At this point, program sponsors and their staff can coordinate on a daily basis with site-level staff at public housing properties to implement the program. They maintain contact with property owners and managers throughout the summer, invite them to see the program in action, and keep the summer meals liaison at rural development in the loop, and even invite their team to participate in the site visit during the summer. In doing so, and by working throughout the summer, sponsors have the opportunity to document lessons learned and celebrate the success of implementing partners to engage those stakeholders for service not only in 2018, but also beyond. So those are just a few of the key takeaways from all the great information we heard today. And we have a couple of audience questions I'm going to get to in just 1 minute. But, you know, I wanted to ask Deborah, I have a quick question. You know, I'm sure there are a lot of folks that are really excited to take all the information that you've shared and immediately engage with their summer meals liaison to expand access to these programs. What are some places that folks can go to gather additional information about summer meals before they dive in? And when they do get ready, what are some, you know, ideal ways to reach out to those state liaisons?
Well, I think the best thing to do is FNS has a wonderful website that everybody should jump on and look at their website, look at all the information that they have, and then once you see where your organization may be a fit, whether it's a feeding site or a sponsor, then you can reach out to any, you know, your rural development area specialist, and they can help facilitate to you know, match you up. And then also, I strongly suggest that list that you're going to be sending out, that you really could start off with that liaison. Like in our state, we have a liaison that we will be facilitating everything through, because she really will know where all the projects are, where the need is, and the history behind, you know, the projects and how we can partner up with other organizations to create more feeding spots.
That's great. And Debbie, I'm going to come back to you for a question, but actually we had a question from Tom on the line for Tracy over at SNS. And his question was, is the program too regimented for the kids we serve? He was saying, they're out of school and they don't necessarily get up very early for breakfast service. So what can we do is the program flexible enough to accommodate maybe a later time, meal start time for breakfast, or do we have to serve at like 8 a.m. or something very early?
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm not in school anymore, and I don't get up that early on the weekends, so I understand completely. So yes, there is a lot of flexibility. We've talked a lot about this with various state agencies and partners, and one great idea that I've heard about is doing more of a brunch. So you have your later breakfast, just call it a brunch because that's fun in itself. And you're going to get more of those, the teenage kids coming then, and then even consider having, a later lunch then as well. And maybe you can kind of keep them, coming for both of those. So yes, there's absolutely flexibilities. Talk to your state agency about meal service times. Yeah, and I know some people like to eat at 8 in the morning, but I'm not one of them. So there's enough flexibility with the program to handle that.
That's great, Tracy. And while we've brought you back in for the Q&A, we had a question from a state agency attendee who was, asking about sponsors and state agencies assessing eligibility of sites at RD housing complexes. So, can you provide a little bit more context about that specific, determination of eligibility at public housing facilities?
Sure. Under the law, there are 3 different ways to establish eligibility. One is with school data, 2 is with census data, and then the 3rd category is considered other data. And so I know you said that this was a state agency who asked the question, but just for the sponsors on the phone, definitely talk to your state agency. And for the state agency, I would recommend bringing that up to your regional office. So you can search for FNS regional offices on our website to figure out who is your best contact. But they can kind of walk you through what's in our area eligibility memo, which is probably too in the weeds for the sponsors for me to go into, but then also talk to you about what that 3rd piece of data could be. And it really helps to come to that conversation with the data itself so that we can see, what's the eligibility. So for example, if you're dealing with rural development, if they have an income requirement to actually have housing in that development, that would be a really helpful piece of information to bring to that discussion when you talk to your regional office.
That's great, Tracy. Thank you. And I had, Debbie, I had a question that we had discussed previously, and it actually goes really well with the question that we got it looks like from Nancy about increasing participation. Her question was, how do we, tips from the field about increasing participation of children in housing sites in the summer meals program, as well as I understand it. And I kind of want to fold that into a question that Debbie, you and I had discussed previously. What are some kind of ideal conditions? What are some things that people might want to look for to encourage or to make likely successful implementation of the program? What are some key factors folks might want to think about when trying to make sure that, the site is going to be a draw to kids and that they're going to be able to sustain participation over the summer?
Well, I think Tracy touched a little bit on it, but what we have found is that if there's fun activities paired with meals are a draw. If there's something fun there for the kids to do. So such as at our facility, if we have a community center that has arts and crafts, movies, computers, books, etc., whatever puzzles, games, other types of board games and things like that, so the children can engage with each other during lunchtime. I think adding these events during the summer helps to raise kid participation in the program. At least that's what we have found in the past and what I've heard from other area specialists. I think finding free and low-cost activities to incorporate in the summer food program can help retain attendance and make the experience more fun for children and the volunteers. Program partners and local community volunteers may be willing to facilitate activities such as donating toys, books, and other supplies to help enhance. So if your facility doesn't have, the fun activities, then reach out and see what you can get from volunteers and donations. So I think that really the key is having a fun and safe environment.
That's great. Thank you so much, Debbie. And I got a question. We've got time for one more question. We definitely had some others that have come in, and we'll try to get to those as quickly as we can following up. But did have one more question here from Mark, who said he's calling in today. He represents the Public Housing Authority in an urbanized area, in an urban area. So his question was, are there issues around participating with rural development, or are there ways that someone, that represents an urban public housing facility or an authority, or even, housing and urban development, are there other folks who can get involved in this work? Is this limited to rural development? I'll throw that over to Tracy or Debbie. I'll let either one of you take it.
I can start really briefly. The program initially was kind of started off from the urban community, so you 100% are welcome to work on summer, and obviously the density is there, and so getting to the children who are in need of those school meals is so essential when school's not in session. So definitely take a look at maybe I can promote the capacity builder, but definitely look at where the summer sites are near you, see if there's a gap or somewhere where you could kind of fill that in. Talk to your state agency and see what's out there, but we 100% encourage you to work on the summer program there in your urban community.
That's great. Thank you, Tracy. And yes, just want to say, we're really grateful for rural development, and specifically Debbie and Edgar out in California, for working with us on today's webinar to highlight opportunities for public housing, especially in rural communities, is what we heard from today. But it's not limited to that. There are other opportunities for folks with HUD, with urban public housing authorities to get involved and support the program. And Tracy, to your point, for those of you who registered for today's event, you'll receive links to the capacity builder that Tracy mentioned, the USDA F&S Summer Meals Toolkit, as well as the state liaison contact list, along with the recording and the slide deck of today's webinar. But without further ado, again, I want to thank Edgar, Debbie at USDA Rural Development California, and Tracy with USDA F&S so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your time. At this time, we're going to transition, and we're going to talk about program outreach and awareness. We know that summer is approaching. We are still seeking partnerships. Still, there are opportunities to bring on new sites to existing sponsors, and which is the purpose for the first 45 minutes of today's webinar. But as we approach summer, we know that program and outreach becomes extremely important. And for that, we're really fortunate to have our colleague Johanna Elsmore to talk about how we can turn up the volume and use surround sound to drive summer success. So, Johanna, take it away. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Derek. I am really excited to join you guys. This is Johanna Elsmore, and I am on our Media and Public Affairs team. We sit on communications, but we really think of ourselves as a lot of our work is a bridge between communications and the programmatic and advocacy work that we do. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about some of our summer messaging and a couple of specific strategies we use to drive awareness of summer meals in the texting number. So I'm going to kick things off by walking through the messaging we use when talking to reporters, elected officials, and other stakeholders about summer meals. We always start by laying out the need. When schools close, kids no longer have access to school meals, and many families struggle to make ends meet. On average, as Derek mentioned earlier, low-income families spend more than $300 a month on groceries during the summer months, which too often times means that they're forced to make very difficult decisions, like whether to buy groceries or pay the utility bill. We also talk about the health and education outcomes that Derek mentioned earlier, specifically that missing out on consistent nutrition during the summer months can really have a long-term impact on kids' health and well-being. We also then go into explaining the program without getting too into the weeds. The National Summer Meals Program was created to connect kids with from low-income families with meals during the summertime. Local organizations families trust, like schools, libraries, churches, and summer camps, sign up to serve meals funded by the USDA. Then we talk about the lack of awareness, which we've touched on a few times here. Families don't know about the program or how to find a site, so only a fraction of the kids who need these meals are getting them. Finally, we talk about the solution, spreading the word about summer meals and the summer text line, which we're really grateful to partner with the USDA to make possible. And since we are talking about summer meals at public housing, I want to share a quick story we heard from one of our partners. They were struggling to get families to come to the summer meal site because of the negative association they were finding with the word free. So they started framing the summer meals as a perk of living in the building, just like parking or the fitness center. And they found that framing in that way really helped to remove the stigma. And I think this is just a great example of one of the ways that messaging really matters. Next. So before we talk about a couple of specific strategies, what do we mean when we say surround sound? We really want families to be hearing and seeing information about the summer meals program and the text line everywhere they look. The rule of 7 is one of the oldest concepts in marketing. It says that a prospect needs to hear the advertiser's message at least 7 times before they'll take action. So our team really talks about this as creating surround sound. We want to literally surround our audience with the message. In this case, that free meals are available for kids in the summertime and that you can find a site by texting food to 877-877. Right here, these are 7 tactics we find effective at driving summer meal participation, with the caveat that these are public awareness tactics, and awareness tactics are not the solution when awareness of the summer meals program is not the problem. So something to keep in mind about the tactics I'm going to walk through here. So tip number 1, organize a broadcast media drop. This is a fun new tactic we've been using to give newsrooms a way to talk about the issue of childhood hunger on the air and on social media. It's a really great way to connect with reporters and also an effective method of reaching eligible families, because many of the local reporters really have a following and are well-respected community voices. So how you do this is start by compiling a list of local broadcast news outlets, and then you assemble a swag bag, so to speak, like to include a fact-driven one-pager about childhood hunger in the state, and then another one about the summer meals program in the text line, and then some real visual items, some swag. We usually include No Kid Hungry sunglasses, a pin, and then a foam board reading text food to 877-877, and a handwritten note with your contact information. This is really important in making it personal. And then just either physically drop these off if possible, or otherwise pack them into padded envelopes and pop them in the mail. Then, of course, always want to do follow-up with the reporters, make sure they received them, and check in to see if they have any questions or want to talk about story ideas. If you do get some story ideas, I always follow up, of course, with a thank you and retweet any of the social. And the purpose of this is just to give newsrooms a real a way to talk visually about the issue of childhood hunger. I'm going to go to the next slide and talk a little bit about how we've seen this play out in the real world. We have used this specifically around summer meals and during school breakfast week, and we've seen immediate results like on-air mentions and signs on social media, which are great at creating awareness. But we've also had reporters follow up with us after the fact, wanting to do a deeper dive into the issue, which is always great. And we've even had reporters call months later wanting to do a story on a different hunger topic because they remembered No Kid Hungry from the media drop. So these are just some best practices that we've learned from doing this. Make it visual. That is the swag bag. You really want to have something that they can wear in the air and get excited about. Short and simple. Recommend only using 1 to 2 one-pagers with not too much text. Make it local. Make sure, local news cares about local issues. Make sure to include some local statistics or local summer meal sites that make it really relevant to the conversation they're having. Make your ask clear. You can provide some very simple sample social media messages and any hashtags you want them to use. And follow up. Newsrooms get a ton of pitches, and you shouldn't be afraid to pick up the phone and call and email and just introduce yourself. So that is the media drops. The next tactic that I want to talk about is engaging elected officials. This is another awareness building strategy we've had a lot of success with, especially around summer hunger. As you all know, elected officials can use the power of their office to connect with constituents in a really powerful way, and they can also gain media attention and champion policies that ensure the programs work really effectively. With the right tools, elected officials can be really strong champions of summer meals in their communities. And really elected officials at all levels, you know, whether it's governors, mayors, state or federal legislators, the school board, other influencers. We have worked across the board really effectively, and by educating officials about summer hunger and equipping them with resources to increase awareness among their own constituents, we're able to engage them around summer meals in a very effective way, and also have had a lot of success laying the groundwork to engage them around other programs that end childhood hunger during the school year, like school breakfast and after-school meals. Here are 7 tactics that we've found work in engaging elected officials. The first is legislative drops. These are really similar to the media drops that I talked about earlier, except that they're going to legislative offices. You essentially would send the same one-pager in visual assets and encourage them to share it on their own social media outlets. Newsletter blurbs, which are pre-written language on how to find a site and include information about the summer text line, can really equip elected officials to help you get the word out about summer meals in the area and how to find them. PSAs, either radio or video PSAs, we can provide them with a short script focused on summer meals and urge them to record it and share it on social media. We've even had some do it through like a Facebook Live, that type of event, to get the word out at the local level about these meal sites. Site visits are a great opportunity. There's really nothing more powerful than letting folks see firsthand how summer meal programs work and how it's impacting kids and families in their area. And this, of course, can also result in media, which in turn creates more awareness. Proclamations are a great way to encourage elected officials to just speak out publicly about the importance of summer meals. It's a great non-controversial way to just put the word out that it's something you support in your community. And network engagement. This is just encouraging your own network to reach out to elected officials with invitations to attend sites or requests for proclamations through email and social media. And that's just they're hearing it from more folks and know that this really is an important issue to their constituents. And last, but of course not least, we have one-on-one meetings, especially with some of the more local level officials. You can get a one-on-one meeting with them or their staff to talk about summer meals in your community, and you can bring some of the really powerful firsthand stories that you see every day and share those with the elected officials. And these are just a couple really great real-world examples of elected official engagement in action. In Virginia, former First Lady Dorothy McAuliffe and Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney served meals at a summer meal site. This is a really cool example of engaging both a statewide official and a local elected official and getting them really involved in seeing exactly what the program looks like and actually participating in service. And it resulted in great press around the summer meal site, which meant more families learned about it. In Arkansas, Senator Boozman issued a press release about his visit to a summer meal site. Again, he got to see firsthand the site in action and in turn garnered media coverage about the program. And last is an example of the proclamations that I talked about. In Florence, Texas, the mayor issued a proclamation about the importance of healthy summer meals for kids, which was another powerful way to speak to and support these programs. So these are just a couple examples of strategies we've used to build awareness about summer meals and create the surround sound that I talked about the program and the text line, really make sure that folks are hearing about it from all angles. I think as part of the follow-up, Derek will circulate a couple of how-to guides we've created that will dig into this even more on a step-by-step basis on how to execute these and a couple other tactics. And I, of course, am always available either now or by email to answer any questions you have about this or hear any stories about strategies you're using. We always love to learn from you.
That's great. Johanna, thank you so much for sharing, and really appreciate you making yourself available to our audience. Looks like folks can reach out directly if they have any questions. And I am pleased to confirm that we are going to send out those how-to guides as part of the follow-up from the webinar, as well as the Summer Meals Toolkit and some of the other resources, including the state contact liaison for public housing and rural development. Johanna, just to break it down, I know we have only a couple minutes. You know, what's an example of a tangible way this how-to guide might be used for folks so that once they get it, they know kind of when they want to go back and click and explore it a little further?
Yeah, so these how-to guides are a great if you have potentially some summer interns, we have a youth ambassador program. If you have folks who are kind of the boots on the ground, these how-to guides really provide a very step-by-step. This is not just a background, but break down exactly how you would do each of these tactics. And the associated costs, so you know kind of, is this a matter of capacity or do I need to put some money, extra staff time into this? And I think it's just a really great way to see both best practices from the field and real-world examples of how it's worked.
That's great. Thank you so much, Johanna, and really appreciate the work that your team's put into this. And also to support, we know a lot of the good work that's happening in the community right now and the next 3 or 4 weeks as we get into summer to make sure that families know about the program as it's getting started, and then of course for the rest of the summer into August. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And on our next slide, we just want to again thank all of our panelists. So Johanna here from the communications team, Edgar Ortega and Debbie Boyd from USDA Rural Development, and Tracy Mao from USDA Food Nutrition Service. And again, I want to also thank Emily, who is doing a wonderful job in her first time being the webmaster for our Schools Out Foods and Webinar series. So thank you, Emily, for your hard work. And want to invite folks to join us next month as we talk about serving summer meals at non-traditional sites. And Tracy mentioned about service at migrant sites. I'm pleased to announce that in this webinar, we're going to explore opportunities to extend meal service to migrant communities specifically. Webinar attendees will learn about basic criteria for serving meals at migrant sites, about qualifying for that category of site type, which again, as she mentioned, allows for service up to 3 meals a day. And we'll also hear from providers who have pursued expanded service in this area. So we're really excited. I've been learning a lot. Hopefully this webinar will be an opportunity for folks to learn something and then think about how they might apply that knowledge in their community or in nearby communities. Again, that's going to be on Tuesday, June 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can register already on our website. Also, the link here will be live when you receive the slide deck. You can click right here on the hyperlink text to register for the webinar. So without further ado, we're right at 3 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thanks again to our panelists. And for all of our attendees out there, we really appreciate your interest in this work, all of the hard work and the outreach that's going to go into the next few weeks as we head into summer. And we look forward to seeing you again on June 12th. Thanks so much. Have a great day.